It happened on a Tuesday night. I was lying on my couch, scrolling through Pinterest boards of cozy two-bedroom apartments. Our future space, or so I thought. The golden retriever we always talked about was at the center of my daydream. And then, without warning, my phone buzzed. I tried to send him a meme about couple goals. It didn't go through. Weird. I checked again. Nothing. I switched to Instagram. Gone. Twitter. Gone. Even WhatsApp. Every app that once held his voice, his jokes, his affection, now showed me the same cold message. User not found. My chest tightened. It felt like the floor had been ripped from under me. Just 2 nights ago, we had dinner at my place. He laughed at my attempt to cook lasagna and promised he'd make it up to me with pancakes on Saturday. He kissed my forehead when he left. Nothing hinted at an ending. And now he had deleted me from his entire life with a single swipe. I dialed his number, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the TV. Straight to voicemail. Again and again. By the 3rd try, my hands were trembling. Why? What did I do? The only heavy thing I had said recently was bringing up the idea of moving in together. My lease ends in a few months, and I thought, naively, maybe, that it was the natural next step. Apparently, that was enough for him to vanish. The betrayal wasn't just in his silence, it was in the cowardice. He didn't even grant me the dignity of a conversation. He turned me into a ghost while he walked away untouched. But here's the thing, silence has its own weight. And as I stared at my blank phone screen, that weight began to harden inside me, not as despair, but as resolve. Because if he thought he could erase me with a block button, he was wrong. Before I explain what I did next, let me ask you this. Have you ever been cut off by someone without explanation? Blocked, ghosted, deleted? Share your story in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and give this video a like. Because trust me, you'll want to hear how this unfolds. And let's just say, his choice to disappear lit a fuse he never saw coming. The first few days after being blocked felt unreal. I woke up every morning half expecting his name to light up my phone like it always had. But instead, there was only silence. Thick, heavy, suffocating silence. I replayed every detail of our last weeks together, desperate to find the crack I must have missed. The way he lingered in the doorway after work. The forced laugh when I mentioned marriage as something far in the future. The time he said, "Let's just enjoy now," while brushing off conversations about savings or kids. Were those red flags? Or was I just twisting memories into weapons to use against myself? But then there were the physical signs. At his apartment, there had been receipts left out on the counter, restaurant bills with 2 entrees and 2 cocktails on nights he said he was working late. There was the gym bag shoved under his bed, not his usual brand. And a necklace box tucked behind books on his shelf. Dainty silver, not my style, not something he ever gave to me. My stomach turned as the puzzle pieces clicked into place. Blocking me wasn't about avoiding pressure, it was about avoiding exposure. He wasn't running from a future with me. He was running from the fact he'd already started building one with someone else. I can still remember that moment of realization. My hands went cold. My throat felt raw even though I hadn't spoken a word. Betrayal doesn't come with a scream. It comes with silence so sharp it slices right through you. But underneath the hurt, something else stirred. Not rage, not revenge, not yet. It was clarity. He thought deleting me meant he had erased the consequences. But consequences don't disappear just because you blocked them. They wait, they gather, and they return when you least expect them. And that's when I made a decision. Quiet, simple, but absolute. I wasn't going to chase him. I wasn't going to beg for answers he didn't have the courage to give. Instead, I was going to take back the power he thought he had stripped from me. The irony? He had handed me the tools himself. Because he had forgotten one thing. Our lives weren't just connected by texts and photos. They were connected by something much bigger. And once I pulled that thread, his whole world would start to unravel. When you're blocked on everything, you start to feel erased. That's what he wanted. For me to vanish like a deleted contact, an inconvenience buried under new notifications. But he underestimated me. Because relationships aren't just built on love. They're built on paper, signatures, agreements, names printed side by side on dotted lines, and his name was tied to mine in ways I knew he had forgotten. I pulled open the drawer in my small desk. the one he used to tease me about for being too organized. "Why do you keep every bill, every statement, every stupid piece of paper?" He used to laugh. He never understood that paper was power, and now those neatly stacked folders felt like weapons. There it was, the lease agreement. My name bold as day as guarantor. Proof of the deposit I had fronted, the one he swore he'd pay me back for later. The utilities still under my account because his credit score couldn't carry them. Even the shared subscription logins traced back to my bank card. For a moment, I sat frozen, staring at the pages. The pain of betrayal twisted with something new, something cleaner. Control. Because here was the truth. He hadn't blocked me from his life. He had locked himself in mine. I started small. A simple email to the landlord. "Please confirm the process for removing myself as financial guarantor." My hands were steady as I typed. No tremors, no second guessing. The response came faster than I expected. Polite, formal, matter of fact. Yes, I could withdraw. Yes, he would be notified. Yes, it would set off a chain reaction he wouldn't be able to ignore. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen casting long shadows across the room. For the first time since he blocked me, I felt air filling my lungs again. Because love might vanish with the swipe of a finger. But contracts? Agreements? Those don't disappear with a block button. They stay. They bind. They wait. And the best part? He had no idea what was coming. The first domino was tipping, and I was the one who had set it in motion. It went out on a Monday morning. One short, calculated email from me, one certified letter from the landlord's office. And just like that, the silence he forced on me cracked wide open. By noon, my phone started buzzing. Unknown numbers, one after another. I didn't pick up. Each call that went to voicemail was like fuel. He had blocked me, but now he was clawing at every angle, desperate for access. The first voicemail was clipped, almost polite. "Hey, I think there's been some kind of mistake. I just got this letter about the guarantor thing. Can you call me back?" I smiled without meaning to. Mistake? No. Mistakes are accidents. This was intention. The second voicemail came hours later, his voice sharper, rising like a blade scraping glass. "Are you serious? You can't just pull out like this. Do you realize what position this puts me in? Call me back now." I didn't. Instead, I poured myself tea, slow and steady, listening to the rain against the window. Every sip was louder than his panic. By the third message, the calm was gone. He was unraveling, each word dripping with anger and desperation. "You're being vindictive. You're trying to ruin me. Do you even understand what's going to happen if you don't fix this?" Yes, I understood perfectly. The notice had given him 30 days. 30 days to find another guarantor. 30 days to clean up a mess he thought he could bury under silence and betrayal. 30 days to realize the woman he dismissed had all the leverage he thought he held. The text followed. Not from him, from mutual friends, carefully scripted lines that sounded rehearsed. "Hey, maybe you should talk to him, he's really stressed. Come on, this seems extreme, just work it out." But none of them knew about the sneakers by the door, the other voice laughing in the kitchen, the way he cut me off without a word. None of them had felt that hollow silence when every line of communication turned into a dead end. I wasn't destroying him. He had destroyed us. I was just erasing the safety net he'd taken for granted. And as each message piled up, I realized something. He wasn't in control anymore. I was. The countdown had started, and I had 30 days to watch him sweat. By midweek, the anger in his messages shifted. Rage wasn't working, threats weren't working. So he switched masks. The next email subject line read, "Please, just talk to me." His words dripped with honey. "I know I messed up. Blocking you wasn't fair. I panicked. I didn't know how to handle everything, and I made the wrong choice. But you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Please don't throw us away over one mistake." One mistake. The sneakers in the doorway weren't a mistake. The silence wasn't a mistake. The months of effort I poured into making his apartment a home weren't erased by panic. But he thought pretty words could blur facts into feelings. I scrolled further. Remember when we picked out that couch together? Or the curtains you loved? That place is ours. We can fix this. Just tell the landlord it was a misunderstanding. The audacity almost made me laugh. Ours? My money, my labor, my signature on his lease. And suddenly I was supposed to believe it was a partnership? When the begging didn't bring me back, the emails turned into guilt trips. You're going to make me homeless. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? Everything he had done for me? I whispered the words out loud, tasting their bitterness. And then came the cruelest pivot of all, his attempt at weakness. Late-night texts from numbers I didn't recognize. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Please just call me. I don't know how to do this without you. I read them in silence, my face calm, my heartbeat steady. Once upon a time, those words would have shattered me. I would have driven across town, knocked on his door, begged to be let back into his chaos. But not now. Because I knew the truth. This wasn't love. It was strategy. Every message, every plea, every tear-stained line was just another way to pull me back into the web where he held the strings. And this time, I wasn't crawling back. The clock was ticking. The 30 days were shrinking. And soon, his desperation would turn into something far uglier. When the begging failed, he changed tactics. If he couldn't break me directly, he'd send others to do it for him. The first message came from Sophie, a mutual friend. Hey, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, she wrote, but Matt called me last night. He said you're being cruel, that you're making him homeless on purpose. Is everything okay? I stared at the text, my jaw tightening. Cruel. That was his new narrative. He couldn't call me anymore, so he was rewriting the story, painting himself as the victim, me as the cold-hearted villain. But instead of rage, I felt something else. Clarity. I finally understood the depth of his arrogance. He really thought people would take his word at face value, that sympathy would flow his way, that I would crumble under the weight of whispers. I typed back to Sophie. Thanks for reaching out. I'll keep it simple. I went to his apartment after he stopped talking to me. He had someone else there. He blocked me on everything. I removed myself as guarantor because I refused to carry financial responsibility for someone who disrespected me. That's the truth. I hit send. Her reply was quick. Oh, wow. He didn't mention that part. I'm sorry. I had no idea. One by one, the messages came. Friends, acquaintances, even his sister. Each carried the same undertone. He says you're destroying his life. Why would you do this? And each time I replied with the same calm, precise truth. No anger, no venom, just facts. The golden mask he wore in public began to crack, and I could almost hear the splintering. Because the thing about liars is simple. They forget that truth doesn't need decoration, it just is. By the end of the week, the silence was deafening again. No more friends texting, no more guilt trips, just a void where his little smear campaign had collapsed. But silence from him didn't mean peace, because when manipulation and reputation failed, desperation always finds another form. And I knew his next move would be even more reckless. The kind that finally reveals who someone truly is when the mask is ripped away. The quiet didn't last long. By Tuesday morning, the first email landed in my inbox. Subject: Fix this now. Leslie, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. Withdraw your notice with the landlord, or I'll make sure everyone knows how unstable you are. I'll tell them about your so-called breakdowns, your mood swings, all the times you cried on my shoulder. Do you really want people to see how crazy you are? My hand shook as I read it. Not from fear, but from something sharper. Recognition. This was the real him. No charm, no excuses. Just threats, ugly and desperate. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new folder on my laptop. Evidence. I saved the email, screenshotted it twice, dated, time-stamped. Proof. Hours later, another message came. Subject: Last warning. You're not thinking this through? That furniture, it's half mine, the deposit, a gift. If you try to take it, I'll see you in court. And trust me, I'll win. Do yourself a favor and call the landlord before this gets uglier. Court. The word was supposed to scare me. Instead, it lit a fire. Because if he wanted to play legal, he had no idea who he was up against. That night, I pulled receipts. Every single purchase I had made for the apartment. The bed, the couch, the TV, even the overpriced rug he had insisted on but never paid for. My name was on every invoice. The deposit? My bank records showed the transfer in black and white. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was preparing to expose him. By Thursday, his tone shifted again. The threats had failed. Now came the bargaining. "Let's be reasonable," he wrote. "You keep your things, I'll keep mine. But leave the couch, the TV, and the bed. Fair is fair." I almost laughed. Fair? After blocking me, humiliating me, and moving someone else into the apartment I built with my money? I drafted my reply carefully. Attached is a spreadsheet of all property purchased by me, with receipts. Everything listed is mine. I will be collecting it Saturday between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Please ensure it is accessible. If not, I will request a civil standby from the police. Your choice. Send. And just like that, the game had shifted. His threats weren't power anymore. They were evidence. His words weren't knives. They were ropes, tying him tighter in his own trap. But I knew the real showdown was coming. Saturday. The day I would walk back into that apartment, not as his girlfriend, not as his victim, but as the reckoning he never saw coming. Saturday morning, 9:45 a.m. I parked in front of the building, my hand steady on the wheel. A week ago, I would have been shaking, begging for answers. Today, I wasn't the one knocking, hoping to be let in. I was arriving on my own terms. Beside me was Claire, my oldest friend, who had volunteered to help me move. "You ready?" she asked, her voice calm but her eyes sharp, like she'd been waiting for this moment almost as much as I had. I nodded. Let's get my life back. We rang the buzzer. Silence for a beat. Then the door clicked open. He was expecting me. Of course he was. The apartment was exactly as I remembered, except for the tension hanging in the air like smoke. He stood by the couch, arms crossed, jaw tight. And there she was, the girl he'd replaced me with, hovering near the kitchen, pretending she wasn't part of this. "That's what you can take," he said coldly, pointing to a pile of small boxes near the door. "The rest stays." I didn't even flinch. Instead, I unfolded the piece of paper I had brought. The spreadsheet of every single item, neatly listed with receipts. I set it on the coffee table between us. "This isn't up for debate. These are mine, all of them. I'm here to collect today." His face reddened. "You can't just—" I cut him off, my voice steady, deliberate. "The alternative is me calling the police right now and requesting a civil standby. They'll come here in uniform and make sure every last item on this list leaves with me. It's your choice." Silence. The girl shifted uncomfortably. He glanced at her, then back at me, and I saw it, the moment he realized he had no leverage left. Claire and I got to work. The couch, the TV, the dining table, the bed. Piece by piece, we carried everything out. He just stood there, seething, powerless. The girl avoided my eyes completely. When we lifted the mattress, I caught his gaze one last time. And for the first time in years, he looked smaller. Not the man who once made me believe I wasn't enough. Just a liar, exposed. Walking down those stairs with my belongings, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I felt like I was finally free. But the story wasn't over. Because once the furniture was gone, there was still the matter of the deposit, and he had no idea how far I was willing to go to get it back. 2 weeks later, an envelope slid under my door. Inside was a check from the landlord's office, $2,250. My eyes scanned the accompanying statement. $600 had been deducted as a lease-breaking fee and minor cleaning charges. Most people would have sighed, shrugged, and moved on. But I wasn't most people. That $600 wasn't just money. It was principal. It was the cost of his betrayal, stamped in black ink. And I wasn't going to let him or her walk away thinking they'd cost me one more thing. I sat at my desk, pulled up every email, every message, every screenshot I had carefully stored in my correspondence folder. My meticulous record-keeping, once mocked by him as overkill, was now my greatest weapon. That night, I drafted the claim. Small claims court, plaintiff, me. Defendant, him. I attached the receipts, the landlord's statement, and the pièce de résistance, his email. The one where he laughed about the deposit being a gift, proof in his own words that he never intended to return what was rightfully mine. Filing that paperwork didn't feel bitter. It felt clean. Like I was putting the final nail in a coffin I didn't bury, but one he built himself. Days later, the ripple effect began. A courier knocked on his door with the court summons. I imagined his face as he tore open the envelope, expecting maybe a bill, and instead finding legal language that left no room for spin, no room for excuses. 2 nights before the hearing, an email arrived. No subject line, no greeting, just an e-transfer notification for $600. No words, no apology, just silence. The kind of silence that screams defeat louder than anything else. I accepted the transfer with one click. Simple, final. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same silence he had once weaponized to erase me was now the silence that confirmed my victory. I didn't just reclaim my belongings, I reclaimed my dignity, my voice, and every shred of value he thought he could strip away. Still, there was one more lesson to unfold. Not for him, but for me. Because sometimes vengeance isn't fire. It's the quiet knowledge that you didn't just survive, you won. And the final chapter would prove exactly that. The day the $600 hit my account, I felt it. Not just relief, not just closure, but freedom. For months, I had been haunted by his silence. The unanswered calls, the blank profiles, the wall he built when he decided that my voice, my feelings, our future, none of it mattered. That silence had been suffocating. It had been cruel. But now, that silence belonged to me. He had nothing left to say because there was nothing left to take. I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by furniture I had reclaimed piece by piece. My bookshelf, my couch, my bed, all carried a different weight now. Not the weight of betrayal, but of victory. I wasn't staring at reminders of him. I was staring at proof of me. Proof that I could fight back, that I could demand respect, that I could refuse to be erased. In the end, it wasn't about him at all. It was about me finally realizing I didn't need his validation to prove my worth. The eviction notice, the desperate calls, the failed manipulations, they were never my burden to carry. They were his consequences, unfolding like clockwork. And while he and his new girlfriend scrambled in a tiny apartment across town, shrinking their circle and living in the shadow of lies, I was building something else. A life that felt whole, a life that was truly mine. For so long, I thought love was about sacrifice, about giving and giving until maybe, finally, I'd be chosen. But now I know the truth. Love without respect isn't love. It's dependency. And silence doesn't always mean defeat. Sometimes it means you've already won. So when people ask me what happened, I don't tell them about the emails or the court papers or the $600. I tell them this. He blocked me to shut me out. I smiled because I realized I never needed him to let me in. And that, more than revenge, more than justice, is the sweetest ending of all. If you've ever had to fight for your dignity, if you've ever been silenced but found your voice again, then you know exactly how this feels. What about you? What's the most satisfying revenge or justice you've ever seen? Share it in the comments below, hit subscribe for more stories like this, and don't forget to like the video if this one struck a chord.